In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a reusable Angular material form field that will speed up your development, slim down your markup, and make you a boss at Angular Reactive Forms. If you would like to follow along in this video, go to the repository into the description and go to the branch example/2-reusable-form-field. Creating Angular forms can be a repetitive process. In my previous video, Angular Reactive Forms with that NgServe-io validation messages, I showed how you can alleviate the need for rewriting validations and reuse messages. When I created the directive and integrated with material form components, the number of times I needed to display the field name, input, and error message exhibited the signs I could create one component to encapsulate these material components into one form field component. First, install the Angular Material package by running in the terminal ng-add @Angular Material. After making a few option selections, the addition of Angular Material in the project alleviates us from having to do a few things. It adds the browser animations module to our app module. It adds our predefined theme for Angular Material to the Angular JSON file. And now it's our responsibility to import the necessary component packages out of Angular Material to use in our forms. Switching over to the user login component markup, we can slim this down further. The label and validation message repeat for each control. When I recognized this pattern for a number of my forms, I decided it was time to make a component that provided consistency, making my markup more concise. The NgServe form field wraps those concerns into one component. You may be asking, but not all controls are going to be text boxes, email addresses, or passwords. This is where content projection plays a significant role. It allows you a mechanism to differentiate in your presentation component with different content inside one or multiple places. Let's install the NgServe-io material forms and NgServe-io forms services package. With both packages installed, we'll need to import a few of the material control modules to support our forms. For this example, import the mat input module and the mat select module. Let's run the project to see what our current form looks like. The validations appear as the value changes, making the form inputs bounce around a bit. These types of interactions can get annoying if the user is on a smaller screen. Cleaning these up with material components should help in this case. Open the user login component markup file, and we're going to start slimming down all the necessary elements for the input. Each input will be wrapped into an NgServe form field component, which will be assigned a control and a label. Notice this removes the span element that displays the validation message. For each input, add the mat input directive. One important thing to note, that inputs used inside the NgServe form field must be of type mat form field control. After the modifications have been made to the user login component markup, let's start up the project. Notice the form fields all exist in the same line. We're going to fix that real quick by opening up the styles SCSS file, and we're going to add the mat form field element as the selector and add the width to be 100%. With our styles in place, we can now start seeing our validation messages in a material themed form. At times, we may not want to allow the user to proceed or prevent the user from clicking the submit button if something's loading. Rather than this being a generic form, we're going to make some modifications with the NgServe form component to customize a few of these options. For the NgServe form component to work, a form group submit class is required in order to check when a form has been submitted. Open the user login component TypeScript file and change the form group property to be of type form group submit. This class exists in the NgServe-io form services to help the validation component determine when to display error messages. In this case, it checks if the form submit button has been clicked. If it has been clicked, all validation messages will display. Let's run the project again. First, click the save button. The error messages display for the fields that are invalid, turning them red. Depending on the user experience you want to provide, the button could be disabled if the form group is invalid. The NgServe form component has a property to disable the save button via the save disabled attribute. We'll set the value to formGroup.invalid. Notice the save button is disabled. Should a user successfully fill out a form allowing them to progress in the next actions, we want to inform the user that something is happening in the background. For instance, the user could be waiting for a response from an HTTP request we're making. To show that processing is happening, the NgServe form component has a saving attribute. When set to true, a spinner shows in the button notifying the user processing is happening. We'll work in conjunction with the save event to demonstrate. In the user login component TypeScript file, we're going to add a property in an event handler. The property will be a saving property of type behavior subject with a generic Boolean, and in the markup, we'll bind this to the saving attribute in the NgServe form component. Next, we'll add a save method which will handle the event from the NgServe form component. In the save method, we'll emit the next value of the saving behavior subject to true. Then we'll add a timer from our RxJS mimicking an HTTP request to delay the next value emitted and see the desired effect in the UI. After the threshold of our timer is met, we'll emit the next value in the saving property to false. Switch over to the user login markup file, and we're going to bind our saving property and save method to the NgServe form component attributes. Add the attribute save and bind it to our save event, and bind the saving attribute to our saving property with an async pipe. Open the browser again and click the Save button. You'll notice the button disables and the spinner icon shows notifying the user something is happening in the background. Today you learned how to utilize the NgServe form field and NgServe form components to speed up the development of Angular reactive forms. The NgServe form field alleviates the concerns for displaying a label and error message, slimming down the markup. The NgServe form component helps display error messages to users if the save button has been pressed for invalid fields. It also allows developers to notify the user of an event happening in the background with a spinner icon in the button. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and be sure to check out GCP Starter Mono Repository that helps developers build more quickly into Google Cloud with components shown here.